Just 2 days ago, BiggerPockets released this article called The Myth of Cash Flow. And in it, they say, in today's market where prices are still going up and interest rates are about double what they were 5 years ago, achieving positive cash flow on an investment house with a loan is extraordinarily difficult. And I could not respectfully disagree with this to my bones, to my core anymore. And I understand everybody has their own perspective, and that's based off your experience, right? So your experience investing in one thing compared to somebody else's experience investing in another is going to give you a very different perspective and opinion on what is possible. But my fear with articles like this and what drives me nuts is that a new investor, new investors are constantly flocking to BiggerPockets, and a new investor could read this and go, well, I guess cash flow just isn't possible today. And so I'm going to give up on my dreams of owning real estate and just go back to slaving it out at my 9 to 5 because the dream of financial freedom today is impossible. Because I think cash flow is one of the most important aspects to investing if you want to get to a place of financial freedom. And I'm going to explain how extraordinary cash flow is actually possible. Not just cash flow today, but really high cash flow. Because I'm a living, breathing example of the power of cash flow. Almost 4 years ago, I left my corporate job because we got to a place of having just 8 really affordable, low-cost, short-term rentals that produced enough cash flow for us to live off of. So at that point, I no longer had to drive downtown to the city, down to Chicago, to my corporate job anymore. I didn't have to spend 8 to 10 hours at the office. I didn't have to fight traffic on the way home. We live what we consider to be our ideal lifestyle by design, which for us, that's living on a farm. We have lots of freedom and flexibility, autonomy, where we own our schedule. We spend lots of time with our kids doing hobbies and things that we enjoy. And since that time, when I left my full-time job, we've accumulated 39 really high cash flowing short-term rentals. I mean, we're in a project right now. It's going to create significant cash flow as soon as we're done. We just finished projects that are creating thousands of dollars of net cash flow on a monthly basis. And I've helped lots of other people over the last 4 years do the exact same thing. So I have nothing against the author of this article. You can read it for yourself. I highly recommend you do. It just came out 2 days ago, like I said, on BiggerPockets, so you can search for it there. But I feel like this is almost like a newspaper company saying that, we used to make really good money in newspaper, but today, media is dead. You just can't make money in media anymore. And meanwhile, they're ignoring the fact that there's thousands upon thousands of influencers and people in new media and online that are just making an absolute killing. But yes, if you look at it from the narrow perspective of someone trying to sell newspapers today, it's a tough game to be in. Media looks pretty daunting because most people aren't buying newspapers. And I feel like this is the same perspective that we're looking at real estate from, or investing in rental properties, because they give an example, and I'm going to share this example with you. I'm going to share my screen here and show you the numbers, but they show an average rental house at average purchase price using average financing and how at average rent rates, you lose money. So my question is, why in the world would anybody invest like this today? And I think the premise behind the article is that cash flow is just there to keep you afloat while you maybe break even, while you capture all the other benefits of real estate. So the property is going to appreciate over time. You're going to pay off your principal so you can eventually refinance and tap into that equity. You're going to get the tax benefits. There's all these other financial benefits that come with owning real estate, which are really good, even if you took away the cash flow. But my argument is that today you can get extremely good cash flow and all these other benefits at the same time. And I think that's the perfect deal to be in. Let me just share my screen here and I can show you this example. All right, so here's the article on BiggerPockets, and if you scroll down, you can see they give an example from the author's hometown here of Kansas City. And so I just want to share with you what that example looks like. So Kansas City, Missouri, single family house, the median home value is $250,000. So we're just assuming we're going to buy a house at $250,000. And so the mortgage at 75% of the value, that he's supposing a 7% interest, which is probably a bit higher actually today, is $187,500. So when you look at the average rent of $1,500 and then you subtract out the mortgage, the vacancy, the property taxes, utilities when it's vacant, management fees, maintenance and turnover, contract services, and replacement of the reserves, you are left with a negative $616 of cash flow. So this is making the case that obviously this is a pretty investor-friendly area, actually, Kansas City, Missouri. So obviously cash flow is dead today. And I think it's ironic that actually this article came out just a few days ago, because at the exact same time that this article came out, I was meeting with my group that I teach how to do these short-term rentals with. And one of the members brought a deal that is a awesome deal. It's an awesome cash flowing deal. And so I want to share what that deal looks like and compare it to this one. So we can compare them side to side and see, is cash flow actually dead, or are you just looking at it from a very limited perspective of this is how we've always invested in real estate. And so we're not going to look at all the other ways to invest in potentially high cash flowing rental properties today. So here's the property that the member of my program brought to me to help analyze. And it's actually already under contract. It was just listed not too long ago. We figured it would probably go under contract quick because the numbers look the way they do. But it's a 2-unit property in Milwaukee, right near the Milwaukee airport. So you can see what the pictures look like. Very well maintained. I believe it was a homeowner that was living in the lower unit, which is all updated. Obviously really nice shower, all recent updates, stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, backsplash, really nice. And then the upstairs unit looks like this. So the upstairs unit's more outdated, needs some updating, still in good shape, but I think it's just a long-term rental. Cabinets from the 70s, solid cabinets, but just outdated, obviously. So it needs a little bit of updating, but even the bathroom, is in really good shape. Each unit's a 3-bedroom unit. So can sleep quite a few people as a short-term rental. The next step in my analysis process is I want to see where it is in the city. So this is right, like I said, right down by the Milwaukee airport. So one of the benefits of buying in an area like this where it's really affordable, and on top of that, it's close to an airport, there's lots of traffic. There's so many reasons that people would stay in this area beyond just coming in for vacation, which a lot of people do, obviously, to Milwaukee, but you're going to have people coming in for family events, weddings, funerals, work trips, all that stuff that people would want to stay in a property like this as opposed to a hotel where you're not getting a full kitchen and multiple bedrooms if you're traveling with multiple people. So from there, I go to AirDNA, and you can put in the submarket, and this is the MKE Airport submarket, so the Milwaukee Airport submarket. So it just pulls up the properties in that area. You can see it's a 50% average occupancy across the year and almost a $200 a night average daily rate. There's 267 active listings in that area. You can see what the seasonality looks like here. So it peaks obviously in the summertime. That's when most people are traveling, and then tapers off into the depths of winter there. Then what I recommend is go to Airbnb itself and put the actual address into Airbnb. And when you do that, this little dot will pop up here, this yellow dot, and then you can see all the comps around it, the comparable short-term rentals. And you can see what are properties actually performing like. And you can pull properties that are very similar to the one that you're considering buying and see, are there bookings? You can look at all the reviews, read all the reviews. It shows when the review was left. So you know when that guest stayed. Typically they say why they stayed, what they liked about the property, what they didn't like about the property. So that's exactly what we did here. We pulled similar units. Like this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, upper unit, 1 less bedroom. It's going to sleep less people, only 4 people. We could probably sleep 8 in our 3-bedroom, 1-bath if you have a pull-out couch, but performing pretty well. Has some bookings upcoming here at about 120 a night right now. You can see several recent stays, and then you can look at the summertime and see, okay, in the opposite season, the peak season, now what does it look like? Okay, $351 a night during this season. So they might not get that. It might be a little bit less than that, but you can see what you want to look for is trends and see what's the trend for pricing at the different time periods. Here's another one. It's another 2-unit property. You can see there's 1 unit up, 1 unit down here, another 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Not the greatest ratings, 4.5-ish, but they're 197 in the summertime. So around $200 in the summertime. It looks like they have a midterm renter in there right now because it's blocked off. 117 then in May. Here's another one. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and you can see 167. They've got most of July already booked out, so it's probably an indicator that their pricing is a bit low if they're already booked out in February for July, and a lot of bookings leading up to that too. So their pricing is super competitive. They could probably optimize their pricing a bit better. They're at 165 in March here. There's another one, 3-bedroom, 1-bath. So again, you're looking at trends, and I would recommend looking at all the listing pictures, seeing what type of amenities they offer, really analyzing their calendar to understand what type of pricing they have. This one's 211 in July, and then seeing what guests are saying about those properties, because you want to compare yourself to the best performing and then mimic what performs the best in that market. So looking at all that, we can go to our analyzer then and pull up the property details first. So this property is listed at $275. So let's just assume we're going to pay $275. Closing costs of $11,000, which is probably a bit high, but we try to use as conservative numbers as possible. So after it's repaired a little bit, it doesn't need a gut rehab or anything, but you need to update some of that stuff. We expect it to be worth about $320. The property taxes are $5,800. Annual insurance should be around $2,000. We're allocating about $45,000 here for repair costs, which you can do a lot on on these size units with $45,000, especially since one is pretty much done already, and then $40,000 for furnishing. So again, we're probably over allocating, but I'd rather over than under. 75% loan to value ratio. So we're going to use the exact same type of financing, which is super readily available to any cash flowing property. And this one will cash flow out, promise you that, and a 7% APR on it. So all that's inputted. Now let's look at the income and expense side of the equation. I'm a huge advocate for these multi-unit properties, and this is why. So we looked at the average single family home. If you just bought the run-of-the-mill house in Kansas City, this is more of an optimized property, not the average, probably lower than average purchase price, and it has multiple units. So when we do that, we can look at, based on the comps, 240 in the high season is very achievable at an 85% occupancy. And we're counting the high season here as just the peak 4 months, right? So 120 days during the absolute busiest season, 85% will be extremely achievable at 240 per unit. Then the rest of the year, the other 8 months out of the year, we're only going to count a 40% occupancy, because occupancy does drop off and you're just going to get a lot of weekends booked, long weekends. Sometimes you'll get a worker in there for a couple months at a time. You can't count on that. So we're just going to count a very conservative 40% occupancy. So 60% of the time is both units are just sitting empty. And we're only going to charge an average of $150 a night for those nights that do get booked, which are, the busiest nights. You're probably going to get mostly weekends booked. And so if we do that, then our average is $390 daily rate and 55% occupancy. So we're going to bring in $78,000 on this property before cleaning fees. So then we add in some cleaning fees and we're up to $86,000 on this $275,000 property. Now, when we look at the expense side of the equation, obviously with short-term rentals, the expenses are going to be higher than with long-term rentals, right? Because we have to pay for things that you don't have to pay for with long-term rentals. So the mortgage is $1,372, got our insurance taxes, insurance and property taxes, your cleaning fee. Basically you're charging a cleaning fee, but paying that to your cleaner. Utilities and Wi-Fi we're responsible for. Lawn and snow removal, consumables like toilet paper, paper towels, stuff like that. And then maintenance. You always want to set aside a chunk for maintenance. Even though you're not doing maintenance on a monthly basis, you want to have that as a reserve. So if that's the case, our expenses are $37.98. And so when we look at our deal calculations, when you subtract the gross income from our total expenses, we're left with over $3,400 of net cash flow. That's the amount left over after all our expenses that we're sticking in our pocket on a monthly basis. But yet cash flow is not possible in today's market. If you're going to invest in cash flowing in rental properties, it's just not going to cash flow, right? This is a 25% cash on cash return on a pretty turnkey property that we're allocating $40,000 for furnishings, another $45,000 in repairs. That takes into account the cash. And even after allocating all that, we're still making 25 cents for every dollar we invest in this property. That's what cash on cash return is. It's for every dollar you put in, how much are you getting on your money just from cash flow alone. That doesn't count appreciation. It doesn't count principal payoff. It doesn't count all the tax benefits. So we're making a 25% return on every dollar we put in just from cash flow, a net cash flow of $3,400, and then all the other benefits that the article talks about that come from real estate because they say cash flow just doesn't exist today. So let's now compare side by side what these two deals look like. So the long-term rental in Kansas City, Missouri, we already went over those numbers. It shows a negative 616. The short-term rental in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 2-unit, purchase price $275, mortgage, same terms on the mortgage, $206 is the mortgage amount. So our income is $7205. We just showed how we came up with that income across the 2 units. Our mortgage, insurance, all the expenses, and we're left with $3407. The question again is, why in the world would anyone entertain investing the old way, the traditional way of investing in a single family home at the average purchase price just to try to get all the other side benefits that come with real estate and leave a massive amount of cash flow on the table by doing it this way? In this article, the author says, in fact, every successful investor that I've ever met has told me the same thing. Cash flow is overrated, or at least it's overrated when it comes to becoming wealthy. So that may be true, but I guess the question then becomes, what do you mean by every successful investor that I've ever met? Like, what is your version of success? What's your definition of success? Because to me, successful investor would mean somebody who has enough income to support their lifestyle and They control their schedule. They're not beholden to anyone else. They have autonomy in life. They have time for things like relationships, their family, fitness, travel, all the things that they want to do. And their income from the properties supports that. So if you just measured success, or you said every successful investor is somebody who's measured just in dollars and cents of their net worth, then I think this could be true. You know, it's overrated when it comes to becoming wealthy. Well, maybe, but it depends on your version of wealth. So my argument would be that it's very possible to cash flow today, because what if you just had 4 properties like I just showed you that created $3,400 of net cash flow after all your expenses? If that was the only properties you ever bought, you're looking at over $12,000, over $13,000 of net cash flow on a monthly basis. And for most people, that means you've just replaced your 9-to-5 job. You can support yourself. You're financially free, quote unquote, right? And so with that time now, you've just freed up tens of thousands of hours for the rest of your life, depending on how old you are, but you no longer have to work now to 65. So for most people, that's 40 to 60 hours a week for how many ever weeks you have left till you turn 65. So tens of thousands of hours. Think about how much wealth you could accumulate if you no longer had to spend 40 to 60 hours a week giving that time to somebody else, but you could focus on building wealth, if that's what you wanted to do. If not, and you wanted to just live off that 13,000 plus a month for the rest of your life, you could do that. And I think you'd be extremely wealthy if you were in that category, if you were doing the things that you love on a daily basis. So you have to really consider, and I think this is a thing that people overlook when they're getting into real estate. It's like success is just my net worth is the highest or higher than everybody else. And so I'm more successful. But there's different qualifications for success. And I've just seen it more and more the longer I've been investing, that it's actually all these other components to a well-lived life that are actually better definitions of success than just using dollars and cents. My only intention in creating a video like this is just that a new investor maybe sees this video and understands that there's a lot of different strategies out there for investing in real estate. And so I hope that you don't just read an article like this and give up hope that real estate just isn't possible today and financial freedom isn't possible, because I truly believe almost the exact opposite of this article, that there actually hasn't been a better time in the past to cash flow than there is right now, which sounds kind of crazy because prices have gone up and interest rates have gone up, but the financing has never been more readily available. To get a DSCR loan on a short-term rental or affordable short-term rental is easy. Like almost anyone can do it because they cash flow so well. There's lots of those lenders out there, and there's lots of these deals in these pockets that are really low cost or budget friendly that still create significant cash flow, just like the one that I shared with you today. And I just recently created a guide called The Ultimate Guide to Selecting a Ridiculously High Cash Flowing Short-Term Rental that walks you through the process step by step. It's free. You can just comment, send me the guide below, and I'll shoot the link over to you. I know there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube. There's a lot of videos on short-term rentals. I hope this offers a different perspective than what you typically see when it comes to short-term rentals. I appreciate you taking the time with me today. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.